So I have a clicking heater that won't stop clicking. It didn't stop clicking last night, and it's still clicking to this morning. I don't know why, but you're just gonna have to live with that in this review for a while, and I'm sorry about that. I wish I could do something about it. Rickety ass machine. Halloween is the sequel to, well, Halloween that came out 40 years ago. This is a direct sequel to the first Halloween movie, and I mentioned that specifically because I know there have been countless sequels to the first Halloween movie. None of those matter because they've all been retconned, and this is officially the only sequel that matters now to the first Halloween movie. Which, in a way, is good because, aside from, I think, Halloween 2 to an extent, all the sequels have been terrible, worse and worse and worse. And Rob Zombie's Halloween happened, which was kind of a start to something, and then H2O happened, and then that kind of ruined it too. And in this film, Michael Myers has been in an institution for the last 40 years, and he hasn't committed any murders, which is good. You know, you don't want to keep him in that world after what he did in the first movie. Laurie Strode continues to live a life where she has no idea whether or not Michael will ever return, but she lives in the fear that Michael could return someday. So she keeps weapons ready, and she keeps all of her artillery ready just in case that does happen, and she might have to face off Michael. And sure enough, during a prison transfer, Michael escapes from the bus which is carrying him, and the bus crashes, and he's out on the streets again to get everybody in Haddonfield. I haven't spoken about Halloween 1 on this channel, but I do love that first Halloween movie. It's a fantastic film, and the fact that they never got a proper sequel always bothered me, because you could do a proper sequel to this. So it's kind of unfortunate that for some reason, every single time there was a chance at a sequel, it just kind of fell apart, and they've gotten worse and worse, and sometimes they were just bizarre. Like Halloween 3, Halloween Resurrection, Laurie Strode actually got killed in one of the movies before. Like, she gets killed in the first act itself. Because, I don't know, they wanted to do that, I guess. And I will say that I really, really liked this movie. I really enjoyed it. I was surprised by how good it was, and I can understand if you don't like this movie, and I'll explain why. This is a film that goes back all the way to the 80s for how slasher films were made, and this has a lot of tropes in that regard. You'll see things like characters make some decisions here and there which make no sense. You'll see supporting characters who can tend to be a little annoying and have some cheesy one-liners here and there. You'll have some moments where a killing would happen a certain way and it would be built up a certain way, and you'd go all the way back to that, as well as having a lot of motifs and shot references to the first Halloween movie, including a couple of camera angles that are very similar to that. Like, one point in time, there's a kid on the street, and it kind of pans back, and you have this shoulder shot of Michael Myers, and it's like, oh, that's very similar to in the first movie. And that can be bothersome for some people, but I thought it worked. I think that's what this film is going for. And if something like that, if that was the intent of the film, to have those kind of things, to be a lot like the spirit of the 1978 movie, and to really recapture that, if they wanted to go back all the way to the way things were, then I guess it makes a lot more sense. But that said, if you're someone who doesn't quite enjoy that and has an issue with certain things like that, then I completely understand you not enjoying this movie. That said, I did, so let me talk about what I liked in it. But first, let's talk about Michael Myers in this movie, because he is one of the surprising aspects of the film in terms of the violence. And, I mean, I understand there's going to be a lot of violence. It's an R-rated movie. But this might be the most brutal Michael Myers to date. This is an aged man. He's obviously, like, you can see the kind of like a beard on him. He is unmasked in this movie for some time. You can see that he has a beard. He's got this white hair. And so once he finally starts to go around killing people, the kills this particular installment are just insane. Some of them are particularly crazy. The movie isn't very scary though. And that might be another problem for some people. It's more of an action thriller than it is a horror movie. I didn't mind that, but if you want something like chilling and scary, like that first Halloween movie, you're not quite gonna get that. This is an action thriller. Straight up an action thriller. Why is there so much noise outside today? But let's talk about the other aspects of the film that I really like. The acting, all of it, pretty much all around was great. Jamie Lee Curtis gives her best performance since a very, very long time. Laurie's character is compelling in that you kind of understand where she's coming from and you can understand why people would be skeptical towards her. It's just such an insane story about what happened Halloween night 1978 that, sometimes when she's having moments of doubt and trying to let go of the past, and the past keeps coming back to haunt her, her family members, they're like, come on, man, you can't keep doing this. But you also understand that she can't quite let this go because what happened 40 years ago was just that crazy. And she has a daughter that way who becomes a major part of the film, and that leads to some pretty great scenes, especially one in particular where they have a conversation. I thought those were very well handled. She also has a granddaughter in this movie who becomes a major part of the storyline, who I also thought was very good. I don't know what the actress's name is, I'm kind of blanking on it, but I really liked her character too. Once again, they kind of build it up as she might carry the franchise later on if this movie gets a sequel, which we'll see about. And I mean, I really enjoyed that. Judy Greer plays Karen Strode, by the way, and she was also very good in this. As a thriller, it's thoroughly engaging. It never loses you for a second. It's constantly, got you on the edge of your seat. It does have some problems. I'll talk about that in a second. From the point that Michael escapes and the whole movie like really starts to kick into overdrive, it just got better and better and better. And by the end, by the third act, you are really like gripping your armrest. It's pretty crazy. Also, one of the things that I'm so happy about in this movie is that John Carpenter came back for the score. And once again, you get a really, really great score. Some people will probably hate the fact that the Halloween theme plays a lot of this in this movie. Like, it's not as subtle as the first movie had it, where it played in those key moments. Here it plays pretty much every time Michael shows up on screen in some variation or the other, So I guess that might, be a little uncharismatic for some people. But I personally thought it was great. I love this score. I can't wait to, get it and listen to it a lot more. Also, one of the things is the cinematography. It's a beautifully shot movie. That was surprising. I didn't, have any idea how the shot composition in this was going to be. But there are some shots which are amazing. There is one in particular. Watch out for it. It's this guy, and you can see Michael in the back, very subtly. And you don't notice it at first, and then suddenly you see him, and you're like, "Oh, wow, that's a great shot." You gotta check that just takes it all. Really enjoyed the '80s stuff. I really like the way they threw back to certain tropes that have been done before. Now, I did mention there were some flaws, and here they are. I thought some of the characters, yes, are a little annoying. There is a boyfriend to this granddaughter, Allison, and he existed for one moment, one key moment. And aside from that, I mean, he didn't have to be there. There's her friend who was also there, but there's no rhyme or reason as to why they're there except for to be bait when Michael comes around with his big kitchen knife to kill everybody. I mean, it kind of leads to an interaction. So I guess there's that, but that has nothing to do with the people who Allison knows. So I don't know. Also, one of my biggest issues with this film, probably my biggest, is the first act feels a bit choppy. Because we're setting up all the pieces and we're taking place 40 years later, certain times you kind of go from scene to scene and you're kind of confused as to, okay, so what is the relationship like for a second? Okay, what's going on over here? Okay, wait, now we're here. So it kind of cuts back and forth between like 4 or 5 subplots. And it kind of gets a little jarring. Once the film, like I said, once it kicks into overdrive as Michael escapes, all of those things start to come together in a much more cohesive manner. It's just the beginning first act, which it just kind of leaves you a little disoriented and it doesn't quite work. But as it stands, I really, really, really enjoyed Halloween. I was very surprised with it. I highly recommend it if you're a fan of the first movie. But as I've mentioned, I can understand if you do not enjoy this movie. I know it's getting good reviews. I understand a lot of people are going to go see it. My theater was packed last night. So I understand if, you're going to enjoy it that way. But if you don't, again, I get it. Everyone has their own opinions. I'm going to give Halloween an 8.5 out of 10. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon, especially Daredevil Season 3, which I'm going to start right now. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. I'll see you guys at the movies.